Morning, everyone. Welcome to Early Care Connection. I'm Izzy Greenberg. Today we are joined by our usual panel of experts, Meryl Gay from the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance and Ava Bermuda Zimmerman from Child Care for CT. I'm going to start by welcoming Luisel, our new interpreter, and just reminding everyone to speak slowly enough that she can keep up. A reminder also that we will use the chat for any technical difficulties or communication between the community, but please use the Q&A if you have any questions for our panelists. Okay, this morning we are delighted to welcome Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro. She is serving as the U.S. representative for Connecticut's 3rd Congressional District. She's, of course, a huge champion of early childhood, of families and children, and has been with us here a few times, and every time there is so much to learn and so much to gather. Congresswoman, we're thrilled to have you here under not thrilling circumstances. I know you have a lot to tell us about this morning, and I'll just turn it right over to you and say thanks for being here and welcome.
Well, thank you, and I'm delighted to join you this morning, and I can't thank you enough for the work that you do. I think it is probably front and center. The most important work that we get done today is what happens to early care and our kids and their ability to be able to not just survive, but to thrive. So I thank you all very, very much for what you've been doing for many years. What I wanted to try to do today is to provide an update on President Trump's shutdown and the outlook on federal funding for childcare going forward. But I also want to hear from you. I want to hear about how the ongoing Trump attack on healthcare and childcare are impacting your lives and your finances. Over the past few weeks, I've heard from physicians, from healthcare workers, parents, disability advocates, and more about how President Trump's $1 trillion cut to Medicaid and the refusal to extend premium subsidies for plans on Access Health Connecticut will be devastating to their clients and their own lives. Now healthcare premium notifications are going out in the mail, and they are devastating. One of my constituents who I was with on Friday, her name is Renee, she has seen her premium jump by nearly $2,000 a month. That is $24,000 a year for health insurance. Can't afford it. People are not going to be able to afford health insurance. The childcare workforce and the families that you serve cannot endure a premium spike this extreme in the midst of the cost of living crisis, which is why I am fighting to extend the premium subsidies, because we are already seeing the impacts to families who are having to make impossible choices with their household budgets. These premium increases will ripple through the entire economy. No industry or sector will be spared. President Trump has refused to address the healthcare crisis. He has preferred to shut down the government rather than negotiate. And that means that childcare workers and providers are left hanging with unaffordable premiums, while parents are wondering if they can continue to afford services for their children. Let me touch on both the Child Care and Development Block Grant and Head Start. Child care providers may not experience immediate impacts from the shutdown. That's due to the fact that the states have mandatory CCDBG funds on hand and have multiple years to spend their discretionary funds. However, the longer that the president keeps the government shut down, the greater the risk of disruptions to families who are receiving subsidies. Now, let me go further with you on Head Start. Head Start is a more uncertain place as we approach November. If the president does not reopen the government, 130 Head Start programs that serve nearly 60,000 children will be left without federal funding for operations tied to November 1st grant start dates. Without federal funding, the centers will be forced to rely on reserve funding or loans or private philanthropy to keep their doors open. In Connecticut, 395 children and 127 staff could be impacted if the shutdown crosses into November, which is why it is so important that the president come to the table, reopen the government, work with Democrats to find a healthcare solution. We have requested over and over again. The last request was made last week by Leader Jeffries and Leader Schumer, writing to the president, asking to sit down and try to come to a deal with negotiations and moving forward. It was summarily dismissed and it was saying no to. Let's find the solution. Childcare workers, parents, and children are all depending on a bipartisan solution. And that only means is if we can negotiate in good faith. All of this unnecessary chaos underscores the importance of passing full year funding bills, appropriations bills that invest in these programs. We need to continue to increase funding for children's programs beyond simply keeping up with inflation, in order to grow the workforce and meet the rising demand. Unfortunately, this has not been prioritized in funding and appropriations. The House Republican bill does not make adequate investments in child care. It fully eliminates the child care access means parents in school or the C Campus program, which is the only federal program exclusively supporting on-campus child care services. Universities throughout Connecticut, including the community colleges, have received funds from this program that allow them to better meet the needs of students with parents. I'm going to continue to fight for the investments in childcare and the childcare workforce, as well as affordable health care for all. This should be a bipartisan consensus, which is what we have done, and which is what I have done in the past when I have negotiated the appropriations bills. I am prepared to work with anyone in the Congress who shares these values. Our children and our workers who help them grow and flourish must come first. Let me now hear from you. That's what I wanted to do this morning as to how the shutdown and the healthcare premium crisis has affected you and your efforts to get the job done. Thank you. Thanks very, very much for allowing me to come before you today.
Yeah, thank you, Congresswoman. Meryl or Ava, do you have any questions for the Congresswoman? Rosa, would you like us to be taking comments from the community?
Yes.
Questions? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
folks, if you want to put stuff into the Q&A, you are welcome to do that. And Meryl and Ava, I'll give you the first chance while we wait for those to come in. And Meryl, you're muted.
I guess I'll kick it. Well, Meryl, go for it, Meryl. You're unmuted.
I was going to say, heard concerning things about SNAP as well.
I'll address that, Meryl. Let me just tell you right now, because I'm going to be involved in a press conference this afternoon on this in Wallingford at Food Share, and I've called the Leader Jeffries' office yesterday afternoon to see about doing a presser in Washington and calling attention to this. Two things. This morning, I saw on the news that the administration is not going to reimburse states for the costs of putting money up front for it. Now, what I'm looking into, Marilyn, I don't have the answer for you right now, is the legality of this and whether or not we have, I know we've done it in the past. I don't know if it's written into the legislation, so I'm trying to find that out. But the second thing that you must know, and I will say this afternoon, we have a contingency fund for the food stamp program. We think it's at least $5 billion. It could be more, but we can't get the exact number. The administration is refusing to use that money to take us into November. Now, we need $8 billion to cover the program, but we certainly could go a long way with $5 billion and figure out if we could do something else. But it is now illegal as to what they are doing by not using the contingency funds. And I am trying to get verification of that as well, Meryl. And we'll get back to all of you. We have to make this fight. There is money there to take us through partially through November, and how we can figure out heading all the way through November. This is just pure, plain politics and cruelty that says, let's blame Democrats for not providing the food because of the shutdown. And it is a lie. And, when we can provide $40 billion to Argentina. So I'm sorry to jump the gun on you there, Meryl, but you can tell how angry I am about what's happening. And I want us, you all, and us to be telegraphing that loud and clear. I will get you the legalities, the information, so you are standing on solid ground. But I need all of you to be able to get out on this as quickly as possible, so people will know what's happening, okay?
Congresswoman, and thank you for being here. I thank you for always taking the time to be on our call and to be with this community. As you know, the grand majority of folks on this call are owner operators of childcare spaces. They are trusted messengers.
Right.
We have close to 300 people here, so the impact on the community is substantial, the amount of parents that they interact with. There's a lot of concern and fear. I hear your anger and frustration as an elected official, but the folks on this call are scared. They're scared, and they're looking to you for guidance. They're looking to others for guidance. And I see a comment from Sonia right now who just said, will Care for Kids federal childcare subsidy be affected? How does Health and Human Services get affected? Should we expect things to get worse, I guess, is my question.
Look, again, I always want to try to go with the information that we have. As I said, if this shutdown continues into November, there will be 130 Head Start programs that serve 60,000 children across 41 states, and Puerto Rico will be left without federal funding. And so that means with so many grants that are affected, Eva, the chances that all 130 reserve funding or quick access to loans or private philanthropy goes down, so more centers and children are at risk to closure. You're scared. I am scared as well. I'm not going to lie to you. And that's, and I believe, this threatens the access that you all have provided for quality early childhood education. I mentioned Connecticut, 395 children and 127 staffers will be impacted if the shutdown continues into November. Now, my hope is that that's why the pressure to say, come to the table. Let us sit down and let us negotiate about this. Let us not just try to, point fingers. And, he refuses. And Mike Johnson in the House Speaker, is not going to move and opening up the Congress. The Congress he's shut down the House of Representatives. I'm going back tomorrow. Democrats are going back. We're there. We want to make the fight. And he refuses to call the Congress back, the House of Representatives back. And the only way that that's going to change is if President Trump says, do it. Because that's who he is going to listen to. So we don't think that any of the centers with October 1 grant start dates that will be closed or have reduced services. You have reserve accounts, yes, emergency loans, deferred maintenance, and delayed payments to vendors to stay afloat. And we'll try to get you, just exactly what we know at the moment, which is happening. But my understanding is that there's only a handful of Head Start programs with October 1st grant start dates this year. So that the impact could be limited in this first month of the shutdown. But it grows increasingly dire, as I pointed out, for November. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, we've got a hand raised from Tashiana O'Connor. Tashi, you're welcome to join us.
Can I just say one more thing here?
Of course.
The other, care for kids will be impacted. It depends, because the state has mandatory dollars. I don't know how much the state has. You know, Head Start differs because it goes directly to the programs versus CCDBG goes to the states. So we need to check on what the state has as well in terms of mandatory dollars. Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna touch on. Hi, Congresswoman, thank you for being here, and thank you for being, I hear the passion in your voice about us providers and the children that we serve. I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you've been doing for us and everything that you continue to fight. And we're here to fight along with you with, I was going to say that because when I went to Washington, D.C., and I was speaking to Jim Haynes about it, what I was told is that Connecticut have rainy day funded, right? By the Democrat that I was told, listen, Connecticut have rainy day fund. So if anything, Connecticut could dip in its rainy day fund. So how would that help providers and parents and public school system for us? I know it's affecting statewide, but I'm more concerned about Connecticut as we speak now.
Sure. Well, look, the use of the rainy day funds, which is a state issue and which is, as you know, up to the governor. The rainy day funds are there. And what will, you know, the use of those funds will be made by, you know, the governor, the state legislature, et cetera, and what they will cover. Then when the governor called me about the SNAP funds, he wanted to know if he put the money up, would he get reimbursed? We heard from the administration this morning that said they won't do that. You know, there are going to be many areas in which the states are going to have to look at whether it is SNAP or WIC or childcare or Head Start, et cetera. LIHEAP, there's a myriad of programs that will be affected, but it is that rainy day fund, the control of that rainy day fund is with the governor. So, and how he utilizes that money.
Okay. Thanks, Tashi. Lots of comments here. One person wants to know, Queen wants to know, what can we do other than making phone calls? Or is that really your number one? What do you want people here to do?
Well, first of all, you know, look, and I would just say to you, let me start with this. And I know some people, because that it appears that I am a partisan on this issue. And I am in that regard because of what's happened and what has happened in 10 months. 10 months, we've seen 200,000 federal employees fired, 200,000, okay? And on this issue, which is so critically important, I also can tell you that when I sat down with appropriators, my colleagues, Tom Cole of Oklahoma, and Susan Collins in Maine, and Patty Murray of Washington State, the four of us, we sat down and talked about coming to a bipartisan discussion of the continuing resolution and the appropriations bills. At the higher level, which includes Mike Johnson, John Thune, and President Trump, their decision was to do otherwise. And I won't go through the statements that the president has made. There's no need to do that. We have asked over and over and over again to sit down, because I have negotiated appropriations bills for many years, and you only negotiate them and you come to a conclusion when you have a willing partner on the other side, and we have done it. I've done it with increasing funds for Head Start, for early childhood education with my Republican colleagues. And now this crowd wants to do other than that. That has to be stopped. To get to your question here is, which is the following. Yes, the pressure Congress responds to pressure. Now, you have a congressional delegation that is 100% behind what you are doing and will be there in support. What you need to do is you have a nationwide network. Nationwide network. You need to be on the phone and working with others in states all over, and I might add in particularly red states, and getting people like yourselves up on their feet and organized and speaking out and going to visit their congressperson. Go to the district office. There's no need to come to Washington, D.C. Go to their district office and talk to them about what the consequences are if what they're doing comes into effect, and if they fail to sit down to negotiate. So it is, and you can do press on your own. You can do op-eds. They can do it as well. And that is what has to happen. You know, we had 7 million people on their feet just a couple of weeks ago. And I would just tell you, we have 3 pillars to work on. One is the courts are our friends, and they go turning back some of this stuff. And our Attorney General has been stellar. William Tong has been stellar. The second is we have legislation, but we are in the minority and we can't win on legislation, but we can, in fact, make the fight on all of this. And with regard to suits, we are not in the majority. We can't sue as Democrats in the House, but we are working with the organizations that are suing, and that we are working is file amicus briefs on all of this. The last thing and the most important is public outcry. That is what is going to turn this around. Congress responds to external pressure. You are external pressure.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we've got a lot of comments here. For everyone here, every comment that you put in and every question, we will forward on to Rosa and her staff afterwards. So no comments will be missed. I just want everyone to know that if I can't call on you or call on your comment. So Janine Lewis, you have your hand up. I'm going to ask you to join us. Janine, are you in the English feed? Because I'm not hearing you. If you could hit interpretation and then click English.
I love that with the simultaneous translation.
Isn't it fantastic?
I'm going to do that for my teletown halls and for my, for other meetings.
Yes, I know. Well, it's the greatest. And we are able to reach so many hundreds more people.
That's
through that.
Powerful.
So,
Powerful.
okay, Janine Lewis, you there now?
She's unmuted.
Okay. We'll give it one more second. We're just not hearing you. Maybe, Janine, I'm sorry, we're not hearing you. Maybe you could just put your comments into the chat for us, and we'll say them out loud. But we do have so many questions I want to make sure we get to. Questions, a number of them about CACFP, subsidized food programs for early childhood programs. I don't know if there's just a question about how that will affect reimbursement, affect funding.
If I don't have an answer for you, and I don't know, I'm not going to say anything that I don't know, but I will find that out for you. We will get that information. Okay.
Yep, that's fine. All right. So somebody's wondering about programs that have contingency funds. Does it mean that if you have contingency that you really won't be affected yet, that it'll hit, but you won't feel the effect?
You won't feel the effect immediately, but you will feel effect, as I say. As I mentioned, that with the food stamp program, there is a contingency fund which could help us through November. If we go beyond November, then we are really, we are in trouble, and we're in trouble.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this needs to be sorted quickly is really the answer. Okay. How does Connecticut decide what to fund out of the list of all the things that could be impacted on November 1st? Should folks here call the governor's office asking for rainy day funds to be spent specifically on the continuation of Head Start funding or other programs?
Yes, I mean, the answer to that is yes. I don't know. Look, it's going to be a tough decision for the governor. There are many competing, very critical issues here. So you know, I think that when we're talking about feeding people, you know, that winds up being, you know, making sure people have enough to eat is got to be a high priority. What we're doing on early childhood, what we're doing on Head Start, which, you know, affects families. So the governor will make a decision as to what the priorities are. I encourage you to be in touch with your state legislators and be in touch with the governor.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm going to say to the governor, get with the governors.
Yeah.
And both Democrats and Republican governors. This is not only affecting Connecticut, this is affecting the nation. And the states do not have the wherewithal to take up all of these issues.
That's right. Meryl, I'm going to call on you next.
Sure. Just a little bit about the two early childhood programs of Head Start and Care for Kids. Our understanding is that the state has arranged to make sure that the two programs with November 1st Head Start programs in Connecticut, I mean, November 1 contract starts in Connecticut, have resources lined up so that they won't have an interruption of service come November 1st. And with Care for Kids, that the state has enough money on hand to fund things through the end of the year. The things that are the biggest problems that families will encounter are the SNAP benefits. WIC, apparently the governor has said we will cover
$300 million, right?
Yeah. WIC is a $7 million price tag as opposed to a $70 million for SNAP. So it's easier for the state to cover that. But the fact that the feds are saying they're not going to reimburse a state if they do it when they've got contingency funds they could be spending or themselves is
unspeakable.
Yeah. Now, if this goes past January 1, then there's some more Head Start programs that get impacted, and things will be pretty bad by then.
Yeah, thanks.
Well,
yeah,
please.
please.
It's got to be movement as quickly as possible, Meryl. And as I say, I will just continue to fight. I've said, and I've said it here a couple of times, sit down anytime, any place, anywhere. We can get this done. And the sticking issue, which you need to understand, people have received their notices of the premium, of their insurance premiums. And it is sticker shock. The woman that I mentioned, she showed me the letter. It is $2,000 more per month. And it's untenable. It is untenable what is happening. So Connecticut notices went out last week and going out this week. Why we say this has to happen now, when Mike Johnson will say that let's open the government first and then deal with this. It's now because the notices are out now. The enrollment period is November 1st, starting November 1st to early December. You must make your payment for your insurance on December 15th to ensure that you have health insurance on January 1st.
Yeah. Okay, and Maggie is confirming that you're correct, Meryl, on that. Also, after Rosa is finished, we're going to just spend a few minutes talking about the logistics of what's going on. So if folks are working to keep up with everything that we're talking about, we're going to give you a little bit of an explainer afterwards. So just stick around. Congresswoman, what time do you, I should have asked, what time do you need to be off by?
Let's see. I guess within the next 15 minutes here.
Okay,
so.
Perfect. Well, we'll keep going through some of our questions then. So there's a question here on kind of the negotiation between the two sides. You know, is it healthcare? What are we sort of fighting over in this in this shutdown? And what can be done, I guess, the question really is there a real possibility that Democrats will have to make some concessions on their healthcare subsidy request demands in order to actually just get things moving again? Sort of what do you see in the future, and who needs, I don't know if it's who needs pressure put on them is really the question, but are we going to lose healthcare maybe? I mean, what are the options here for Democrats?
Well, let me just say is that your last comment was really important about losing healthcare. Think about remember the big beautiful bill that they passed? That was a $1 trillion cut to Medicaid.
Yeah.
Can't lose sight of that. Who does Medicaid cover? Children, the disabled, low-wage workers, and seniors. The result of that is nursing homes will shut down, community health clinics will shut down. I'm talking to the hospitals tomorrow. I've been talking to nursing homes, etc. Everybody's scared. And a family that has a child who relies on, I met a family last night. Listen, I was in a restaurant, went to pick up food to take home. The gentleman stopped me. He said to me, continue to fight. He said, we can't survive with my son who's disabled if we do not have Medicaid. So that's one piece of healthcare, which we are fighting for, okay? Medicaid. People don't understand that given what they did with that big, beautiful bill, which breached a deficit cap, which we have a law that says if you're going to spend money, you have to pay for it. Well, they're not paying for the $4.5 trillion in the tax cuts. So we breached that wall. And that means that there's a 4% cut across the board. It doesn't affect Social Security, it affects Medicare. $500 billion over the next 10 years for Medicare will be cut. Okay, so that's one piece. Then they have refused to extend the premium subsidies, which were put into place in order to help people pay for their health care, people who are on the exchanges, the healthcare exchanges. And the fight for us remains over Medicaid and the fight for the premium subsidies, because as I mentioned earlier, those notices are going out all over the country. And I believe when people see that, their views about this, that is going to mount the pressure to put on the institution to move. I know that some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are already saying, hey, we've got to do something about these premium subsidies. So that's what we're fighting for. That is the crux of what this is about. And I will just be honest with you, we are committed to saying lower the costs, cancel the cuts that you have put in place, and we want to save healthcare for people in the United States, because what they're doing is trying to dismantle public health in the United States.
Okay, so there's a lot of questions here around, is the best way to put pressure on Speaker Johnson to get him to call back the House? Is it to put pressure on everyone to come to the table and do more negotiating? Is it to call friends and families in red states and ask them to consider a different perspective? What is the thing that you think is the very most important if people are going to spend their time? What are they asking for?
Yeah, look, I think, right. What is it? The first and foremost thing is, call back the House and negotiate. Call back the House and negotiate. And, sit down, come to the table. As I say, you can't have a negotiation without two people. You have to have a willing partner. You have to deal with the political will of trying to solve this issue. And so that, and so whether it's here in Connecticut or whether it's outside, is getting people to say, just negotiate on these issues. Look, people can have different views, but can come to a conclusion. We'll figure out what it is that we want to do about the premium subsidies, what we want to do about Medicaid. But if you can't sit down, you can't talk about anything.
Yeah. And now that, and I know, folks, we're getting into a lot of like nitty gritty here. I know there are people here who are worried that we're entering into partisan territory. We do try to stay as neutral as we can and keep the focus on what's best for children and families here. We have Congresswoman DeLauro on. She is a Democrat. She of course has a perspective, and I just want to be clear about that. That is, of course, we're glad she's here. We're glad for any public figure who represents our state to come here and share their perspective. So I just want to get that out of the way as I'm asking questions that sound like they are some partisan in nature.
I want to get it out of the way as well. I'm providing you with facts.
Yes.
People can come to their own conclusion. If I don't provide you as your representative, then I'm not doing my job. I can tell you what the facts are. You can check them yourselves. Don't go to me. Find out what's in that big, beautiful bill. Find out about the premium subsidies. Talk to the families that you are catered to. Find out what's happening to their health insurance. Then you make up your mind of what you want to do. I have worked for years. As I said, I have passed appropriations bills with billions of dollars that have supported childcare, early childhood education. And I will continue to do that and make that fight. I don't care who is in office.
Yeah, and listen, this community knows that you fight for children and families. There is no doubt about that, Congresswoman. So with this, I was really preempting the question I'm about to ask, which is with states redistricting to keep Republicans in power, how will Democrats combat legislation that impacts the early childhood community and programs that help families in need?
Well, look, I just can say it more plainly. I'm going to fight like hell. We are. My colleagues are there. Never going to look. And I will say a political thing. I believe we can win the House of Representatives back next year. And at that, I intend to be the chair of the Appropriations Committee. And these are the highest priorities that I have, as I have in the past, and make sure that we are addressing these issues, because it is about our kids. It's about the people who tend to our children and making sure that they have economic security going forward, and that our children have the opportunity to be able to, I say, not just survive, but to thrive, which is what we have worked for, which you have worked for all of your professional lives to make it happen. We are not about to see people who have no interest in any of this take charge. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. But Meryl or Ava, before I keep going, do you have any questions or comments?
I wanna lift up a question from Minnie Santosh, and I want to lift it up because I see a lot of providers really concerned, and I don't want to beat this topic over again and over again, but there's just so many comments about Care for Kids and the other subsidies. So we heard where Head Start is and could be going, the very soon demise, the funding could be pulled back. That's real. But for Care for Kids, the other child care subsidy, 60% of the funding for that program comes from federal dollars. The state then puts in the rest. Minnie's question was, is there going to be a shutdown or a sunsetting of funds come December 2025? She said, is that true? Do we know anything?
Just to
Meryl.
sort of answer that, no, there's no plan to do away with the Care for Kids program. There is money on hand in Connecticut to fund it through the end of the year. We hope that Congress will will pass a budget, and Care for Kids is always, or this Child Care Development Block Grant has always had bipartisan support. It is a work support. So we would expect it to be in the budget. I haven't heard about any efforts to try and reduce that budget.
Yeah, and I would just say it has long-standing been a bipartisan program, and I wanted you to answer that, Meryl, with terms of the date, because you know that intrinsically. But look, I'm going to work to see that what we do is to resolve this, and that the budget that we pass continues to deal with even that 60% that we provide. That's what has to happen. That's the goal. That's
I
the
think
goal.
it's also worth mentioning Maggie Adair from the Office of Early Child. So the state of Connecticut is on this call, and Maggie put in 2, maybe 3 occasions. She put, Meryl is correct. OEC has sufficient CCDF care for kids, parentheses, funds through December 2025. So she did write that in the chat for those who are looking.
Yeah.
Great.
Go ahead, Meryl.
We are still trying to get an answer on if that's the same situation for CACFP. That's the other program that lots of childcare providers depend on. And we have not gotten a response from the State Department of Ed that administers that program yet.
Okay.
If anybody knows more, I'd love to hear.
We'll check on that too, Meryl.
John is asking, who among users of childcare services, like working professionals and service workers, would be most adversely affected if the services end are cut or are withheld? And I think it's like people who can't afford to pay full freight is what I think. I don't know if anyone here has a different answer, but yeah, I mean, anywhere, no one can afford, very few people in the state can afford to pay full freight on childcare. And everyone here is not making what they deserve. So, you know, we're in a real bind. But Congresswoman, I don't mean to jump the gun there. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to hear from, all of you on that. I think you're absolutely right. And I also think connected with this, something that you might want to find out from your families is, what is their story on their health insurance? Because that's critically, people are living paycheck to paycheck. They've got housing costs, they've got electricity costs, they've got grocery costs, but healthcare costs, at the top of the list. Many have received Medicaid. I would just say that they've been clever in dealing with that. Those cuts and things don't come into play until after the 2026 election. But the issue in terms of the subsidies at the moment, if these people are getting, if it's Husky or so forth, they're in jeopardy, and we should find out what their status is going to be in terms of their ability, up to whether or not they then don't afford health care, they don't do it, so forth, and they drop it.
Yeah. And we learned, I mean, these calls started during the pandemic, and what we learned was how many childcare providers had unstable health insurance or didn't have health insurance, and the worries that their families were bringing illness to them, causing them to have problems that they then couldn't go to the doctor for. Then it spreads more. This whole industry really has a health insurance problem as well. So, it's not just our families, it is our community that is also dealing with that. We've got about 2 minutes left with you. And so Ava, I'm gonna call on you next.
I just wanted to thank you again for taking the time out, hearing providers out, understanding how horrible things are in this community and how hard we've worked to better it, and how hard you've worked. And we now, in this time, 2025 legislative session here in Connecticut, we had a great victory where educators have access to healthcare, where providers get, through certain programming, could get paid more money, where parents can pay less. But simultaneously on the federal end, all that work that we did statewide to make sure that we were giving these amazing opportunities through policies and being heard locally are being dismantled on the federal end. So it is scary times. We appreciate all of the work that you do, and I'll pass it back to Izzy.
Yeah. Well, I will say that a lot of comments here about CACFP, the Child and Adult Care Food Program, a lot of nutrition concerns here. So what we're going to keep doing is take more comments in the Q&A and in the chat. And by the end of the call, everything that we have gathered up, we will send Rosa to you and your staff so that you have that. And I would say also, folks, if there's things that you think of after the fact, feel free to, of course, email me or any of our team, and we can pass those on as well. You can always reach out to Rosa directly as well. She's, her office is open. So, but Congresswoman, I want to give you the last word on this.
Listen, I can't thank you enough, and I want to go back to what I said at the outset, and Eva mentioned this as well. I think about how far we have come as a society, as a government, to address the issues of early childhood education, of child care, of a head start, of a way in which we can provide the kind of environment where our children have the ability to grow and to succeed and to achieve. We have worked hard. You have worked hard, and we have made some tremendous gains, and to play fast and loose with this system, and this is with people's lives. And when I think about the providers who provide these services and allow them to be able to have the financial resources to do their job, their mission. And most often, these are the lowest paid workers, which we need to address. And they are taking care of our children. And we have worked, as I said, we've used the data, the information. We don't need any more data about what we need to try to do to help kids be successful and what to do. And my God, why would we want to just move backward instead of building on what we have? Make it better, address it in the best possible way with the resources that are needed to be able to do this. Maybe this is going to sound, maybe it is snarky. If we could send $40 billion to Argentina,
Yeah.
why can't we spend the money here for our kids? That's what has to happen. So thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for your commitment to the mission, and for not losing hope, not losing faith. We stand up and we fight back, and we will prevail. Thank you.
I hope you can see all of the thanks and gratitude coming through to you. This community is one big open heart. So I know that having the people here are fighting for their families in the way that you are fighting for all of us. And so we really do appreciate that. Ava, did you have one last thing, or you're all good? Okay. Well, Congresswoman, we love having you here. You're always welcome back. And we look forward to the next time. Hopefully you'll be here to tell us that we have so much money that we'll
get you the information.
We need to take care of more children.
I'll get you the information we promised, both on the SNAP program and the CACFP. Okay.
Great. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, folks. So we are just going to spend a few minutes now kind of going over what we just learned. Meryl, maybe I'll start with you. I know there's a lot to unpack there about a lot of questions here. Well, when does this end? And when does that end? And what should we be preparing for? I mean, there are questions. This is not a full call. I think we need a full call on this, but just a few minutes to kind of get people back up to date. Like, one, what do they need to do? And two, what do they need to be preparing for? So those are maybe my first two questions for you.
Yeah. So just to reiterate with Care for Kids, Care for Kids is 60% funded by the Child Care Development Block Grant, a program that has had bipartisan support from its inception back in 1997. We fully expect that it will be part of whatever budget Congress eventually passes. We just don't know when that's going to happen. There is enough money on hand in Connecticut to fund Care for Kids through the end of the year. We've never had a government shutdown that's gone more than 35 days. And we're at 25 or so now. So but we are stable through the end of the year. Hopefully they will resolve this before then. CACFP is a question mark. As soon as we get some information, we'll let you know about that. And then the Head Start programs are okay through the end of the year as well. We don't have any programs that have contract renewals in December. So it's the January date that we have some more programs that would be potentially impacted. The two that have November 1 deadline or renewal dates, we understand that financing has been set up to make sure they don't have an interruption in service. I did also want to mention that last week we had LISC on to talk about their facilities grants. Because of the Amazon Web Services outage, they weren't able to get their questionnaire up. So I'm going to stick into the chat information, a link to their website where you can get more information about their new round of funding, which is open now. They are looking both for people who are qualified for this grant round as well as a pipeline of future grant rounds. So there's a survey on there you can fill out to indicate sort of what's the status of your project, what are you trying to do, so that they can figure out what kinds of technical assistance you need in order to get ready for a future round.
And last question here is, we've got a special session coming up in Connecticut. Do people on this call need to be doing anything kind of, given the federal shutdown, given what we've talked about today? Is there anything that needs to happen for folks here to advocate in the special session that's upcoming? Or is there a strategy in place, actually, is really the question. Is there a strategy in place? And if not, what should people do?
So I heard today that there seemed to be some movement on the housing bill, which is one of the things that's been talked about. But the big thing is setting aside some money that would otherwise get used to pay off pension debt to use to cover shortfalls in the federal budget. And Ava may know more about that than I do. I'd heard that the treasurer said we could do 500 million set aside, and the governor then only wanted to do 300 million. You know, the thing that is going to hurt first and foremost is the shut off of SNAP benefits. A lot of folks don't understand that even if you have a balance left on your EBT card, that's not going to be available come November 1st.
Right.
So people should spend their balance on some staples that, you know, will last. And then we're going to have, in cities like Hartford, where a third of the population relies on SNAP, lots and lots of hunger. And the state's going to need to figure out what we can do on an emergency basis without the expectation that the federal government is going to, you know, bail us out later on. But that's going to be a crisis. We're going to need to figure out how to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know food pantries are gearing up. One, food pantries are already in some areas taking in extra families because of federal employees who are not working are using those services more than they were. And two, they're gearing up for this November 1st change. So they're already going to be stretched thin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got only a couple minutes left. Ava, is there anything that that you want to add? Any updates from your end? No. Okay, great. All right. Anything else, Meryl?
So there will be a new RFA for applications for early start coming out shortly. We don't have an exact date yet, but it should be in the next few weeks. So keep an eye out for that. As soon, you know, it should be on the listserv. OEC will be announcing it to licensed providers, etc.
Yep. And actually, Jennifer put in the chat that these new spaces will have a start date of January 1st.
Right.
So that's going to be a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you, everyone. Wait, hold on. Do we know next week's topic? Let's oh, well, you know what? Let me tell you a few things, guys. Let me tell you a few logistical things. Ava, go ahead and talk about next week.
Yeah, so we had originally we had OEC and UConn scheduled for today to discuss the parent/provider survey. We held off on that because Congresswoman DeLauro, she requested to be on this call, by the way. We did not reach out to her. Oftentimes we do when things are in crisis, but I think it's worthy of giving her the shout out that she called us and said, I want to be on your call. I want to have the conversation in your community. So UConn did, they said yes to rescheduling for next week. I think we have to just double confirm with OEC's folk to see if they're okay with doing the parent survey. So that's next week.
I think we've got the next few weeks all settled. And also, let me just tell people there is a new way of we have a new method when we upload our videos on YouTube now. If you can choose to listen to it in multiple languages now. There's like an overdubbing. Most languages will be an AI voice, but that could be useful if you still prefer to hear in another language. But the audio for Spanish will be Luisel's audio. And so we are able to now take our interpretation audio directly and put it in as the Spanish audio. And so you can now listen to the recording back, not just in English, but in multiple languages, which was something that we weren't able to do until now. We had to list the Spanish audio file as a separate file. And so that is a great update. If you go to Early Care Connection, you can .org, you can get to our YouTube. That's same thing, Early Care Connection, and subscribe. It's the easiest way to be notified when the recordings post. But of course, you can always just go there to check out the recording or any other things. We'll put the presentation, links to the chat file, and anything else in the description of the video. So just an update. And thank you again, Luisel, for providing interpretation for us this morning. Thank you to the Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro for being our guest. Of course, Marilyn Ava for knowing so much, and to all of you who are the big part of our state for showing up every week to learn more about how you can do your jobs better. And that is so appreciated. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next week.